So I'm hopping on today more of a personal story time, okay? I'm going to give you guys a little bit of insight into why I'm doing what I'm doing, okay? Despite having went through all the failed systems, healthcare system, working in the education system, okay? I've seen it all, the housing crisis, okay? I've lived in a freaking motel, okay? There's nowhere to live. I lived in a tent. Go onto YouTube, you can find my oppressed life. The other reason I do what I do is because I've worked with kids my whole life getting out of college, okay? I want to share what I did before my illness took over my life. I was let down in the education system. Prior to that, I worked with kids in care for about 14 years, okay? I did that right out of my college placement, and that's all I've ever done. My whole life was based around working with kids, okay? I supervised, I ran a team. I worked with kids that were in the care of the CAS, okay? They were apprehended from home due to neglect, abuse, everything. I have so many stories burned in my mind of files I've read, intake files, okay, and what kids have disclosed to me, okay? You guys have no idea what kids can go through, what adults will put them through, and what young teenagers, young children, what they can do if they've been sexualized, and they'll think nothing of, you know, sexually assaulting a child younger because that's all they know, right? They don't know right from wrong. They were groomed, so then they go on to groom other kids, okay? So, having worked in this profession, and, you know, I wasn't no dummy. I supervised 2 agencies, okay? I worked directly with CAS. I held staff meetings. I held CAS meetings, attended CAS meetings, supervised phone contact, supervised some visits. Okay, I may not personally have kids, but I've worked with so many kids over the years, I've lost track, okay? But one thing that never changed was I was like a mother to these kids, and I had kids telling me that they wished that I had been their mom. Okay? With all the professionals, play therapists, as an on-call staff, okay, and I hated on-call. I was on call. I was the one that people called, okay? I was like the police without the sirens. I've said that before. Told by my staff, okay, I was the best supervisor that they ever had, and I was everybody's favorite on-call, okay? Always knew the staff were doing the best that they could, so I always asked how the staff were first and then how the kids were, because I knew the staff were doing the best that they could. I taught placement students. Placement students followed me, okay? And I gave supervisions. I talked with the professors at the college, okay? Once I even talked to them at the college, okay? What I'm on here is I started to see the systems for kids in care, okay, fall apart in 2010. There was less juvenile detention centers, okay? Sometimes kids need someone to yell at them, okay? A boot camp, okay? And in 2010, those were the type of kids that we were getting. We were getting kids with charges coming in, living with younger kids, okay? That wasn't right. I had a kid come in and his worker brought in a gas mask so he could smoke his marijuana out. Lock that up. Ain't no kid gonna be smoking marijuana out of a gas mask with me. We had these younger innocent kids, and we were starting to get the kids with charges coming in, okay? And those poor kids had to see all this adult stuff. They already had lost their innocence. The reason I'm coming on this Thanksgiving is because I spent a lot of my years spending the holidays with these kids, making homemade meals, okay? And the kids that didn't go home on visits, okay, they stayed with staff, okay? And when I had to work a holiday, I tried to make it extra special for them. Those kids didn't go home. They had no access to their parents, okay? And some kids do better without their parents in their lives. It's unfortunate, but any kid will always want to be with their parent, even if their parent is the world's worst parent. Those kids still want to go back. And around 2010, I saw a child go home to their stripper mother, who was high at a CAS meeting, and that kid later, I found on the news, ringleader in a sex trafficking investigation. I knew at 10 that kid, I was going to see the kid on the news, and I wasn't wrong. I advocated for kids my whole life, and I'm not stopping now. Everyone knows what's going on in the streets right now, okay? It's not safe for men or women to walk down the street, okay? So imagine a kid, and if you think it's bad in the school systems, I'd like to know what's happening in CAS, because I've been out of the CAS system, and I don't know what's going on with the kids that have been removed from their homes, okay? And I imagine it's like every other occupation, the CAS workers, their hands are tied. Everybody in these professions, they can't talk because the government runs us. Hopping on right now to remind everybody about the kids in the CAS systems, okay? What is going on there? I'm actually very worried because I have a lot of stories, okay, up in here, and it's making me go, holy shit. CAS kids are good. So if you're a CAS worker, please talk to me. I would like to know what's going on, okay? My whole years, I never met a bad kid, okay? I understood why these kids might call me a bitch and the see you next Tuesday, okay? I don't dwell on that. I knew those kids were lashing out because of what they went through, okay? So, any kid that I've ever worked with, I never thought any kid was bad, okay? And some of the more challenging kids, I love just even more. Raised by a lunatic parent or family, okay? There was one kid that shared with another staff one time, but I worked with directly, that this kid was a teenager, said that you know, they couldn't have a proper job when they were older, because if they took the path of right and made good choices and had a good job, then their family would look down on them and wouldn't accept them. So the kid said that they had to become a criminal when they were older just to be loved by their family. And it doesn't matter, any kid being removed, everybody loves their family and their parents. And even if your parents are abusive to you, like some of these kids, they still want to go home. And sometimes that's not the best option, right? Unless parents are really making good choices, right? Like not stripping and snorting, right? Back to the CAS workers, it's not their fault, it's the judges, okay? It was the judge that sent that kid home to their stripper mom, right? What's going on right now, right? The reason I'm hopping on today is because Bam Bam Andrews is a survivor, and I worked with kids that were survivors. And kids, you are a survivor, okay? You got through it all, okay? Bam Bam is a survivor. He is a fighter, and it goes to show that it's not always women that are sexually abused in their life. Boys are too, and I worked with more boys that were neglected and experienced sexual abuse. Also girls, but there seem to be more boys in care. Just my observation. These kids have disorders, you know, FASD, fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, and that is a scary one. That is a scary, scary disorder, guys. These kids are very impressionable, and they just seem to get trouble gets attracted to them because they're not always mentally the age that they should be. I can't help but worry about some of the kids I've worked with in the past. Where are they today? How are they making out? Because I know that some of them weren't the right age. You know what I mean? We are the adults, okay? And we need to be in charge again, okay? Everybody needs to do their part right now, okay? Retired people, you know, come out and help. Able-bodied people, okay? You got people working right now, okay? And people are working 10 jobs. We have to do our part to save the kids, okay? To save Canada, okay? Like, it's not even safe for elderly people, okay? Can you imagine when you're older what this is going to look like, okay? Walking down the street as a little old lady getting stabbed? No. Kids need consequences, and kids need love, okay? You need to have a balance of tough love, okay, and just love. When a kid has calmed down, debrief with them, okay? You should always talk about the issues. kids should have consequences and incentives, okay? Everybody needs incentives, even staff, okay? So I'm going to come back on and give you some more tip how you can be a good leader, okay? And how you can make some changes in your kids' behavior if they're acting like, the Tasmanian devil, okay? Everybody needs a little help to regulate themselves. I'm still working on that stuff, right? We all need to regulate ourselves. Kids don't know, and if they've been in a traumatic upbringing, they need our support even more. So what are you going to do to help the kids, the next generation? And don't forget those kids in care.